Hi, welcome to the Inspire View series. My name is Cherrise Boucher of CherriseBoucher.com, and I'm a momentum strategy coach. This series I put together because I found it was so inspiring to hear other women's stories about how they followed their passion and their hearts to doing what they do. And I've come back to these connections that I've made with these women from all over the world many times to inspire myself over the past year and a half. Because I feel like if they can do it, so can I, right? So today I am bringing back a guest that I had last fall. I think it was October, November, somewhere around there, 2015. And Christine has since gotten married and shifted her business a bit. So I'm going to reintroduce you to Christine Judd. She works with women starting up holistic businesses for the very first time who are, feeling both excited and overwhelmed at the prospect and haven't a clue where to begin. I think most of us have been there. She helps them decide what business would be best for them, identifies their target niche, and gets their businesses ready to launch. She's also got quite a background that we'll talk about too. So stuff I love, energy stuff and everything, intuition, all that good stuff. So welcome back, Christine.
Thank you for having me.
Oh.
With a new name, I sometimes still kind of get used to my new name because I've changed it obviously after getting married. So.
I keep wanting to say Chanel too. So, and then if I'm looking for you, I'm get your maiden name in my head, and then I'm like, oh no, it's Judd now. So.
Yes.
So fill us all in. I mean, you've got exciting stuff, and you've changed a bit, but it still sort of seems in the same line of what you were doing before.
Sort of. Yeah, so last time we spoke, I was doing a lot of tech stuff, and I was, bringing the tech stuff together with the marketing and stuff like that. And I'm still doing that to some extent, but I've actually gone full circle with where I started off, like nearly 2.5 years ago in the business. Because I started off with helping holistic, like yoga teachers, my fellow yoga teachers and stuff like that, helping them figure out, their marketing and their websites and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of, because I'm so technical, I kind of got sucked into the online world and got sucked into the whole, sales funnels and, like email automation and all that kind of stuff. And I still do that, but I've actually gone away from doing service work and doing more mentoring and teaching. So, I think I needed that to kind of go and do the journey of going away my path a little bit and kind of working with lots of online coaches and stuff like that to finally coming full circle and kind of saying, no, actually, it's holistic practitioners, healers, and, intuitives and yoga teachers that I really like to help and work with. Because there's so many people out there for coaches anyway, but I've actually realized for this very much, like, this is my niche, like, the holistic intuitives that have, they're really good at what they're doing, but they don't know how to market themselves. So, and I've now kind of made it my mission to actually start right at the source at their training. So I'm actually doing my first teacher training on Sunday.
Oh.
I'm going to do the, business module for a yoga teacher training this Sunday. And that, I'm really looking forward to that because it's a massive thing that we should be doing. But most teacher trainings or any colleges actually don't really do that because they just don't have the time for it.
Right.
So yeah, that's where I am. I'm, teaching more, and I've created a whole online course since I don't think I had that ready last time when we spoke.
I think you were doing it.
So that's kind of, all done now. I'm actually doing the second iteration of that, and I'm rebranding it to an academy, and, so that's all on the go. Yeah. So
exciting.
It's been a good few months, I have to say.
So you've taken like the techie part out of what you're helping people with?
Well, not necessarily. I teach them. like for me now, I'm actually going into kind of mentoring. So I've, kind of designed, I suppose, I go through some of the details of the course that I've created because I've realized, well, this is exactly what people need, but some people don't want to do it in their own time. They'd rather have me helping them out. So I still teach them how to do it, but I'm actually, yes, going away from doing it for people.
Gotcha.
I do service work, yeah. So
you empower them to learn how to do it themselves, which I love.
They might not necessarily decide to do it eventually, but that's a big part of my teaching, that I think everybody that has business should know how to do it.
I agree.
Whether or not down the road to decide not to do it is a different story. But, you can rely from the start on someone else, because if that relationship, goes south, or, they move on or something different, you're stuck, and you're not able to kind of continue on or kind of bridge the gap between people. So.
Right. I agree. And then you've got a website or mailing list or something that you have no idea how to do anything with. So then really you're at the mercy of, panic of sorts to try to find somebody who will fill in the blanks. And you might need things done like yesterday. And then you're working on somebody else's timeline of when they can fit you into their schedule. And yeah, I totally agree. I'm all about helping people. I do that too when I can, if somebody's not familiar with something, or they're like getting ready to throw their computer out the window or something. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Let me help you.
You don't have to throw it out just yet. It's fine.
Just hold on, take a deep breath, and let's work through it.
Yeah. But then I've actually noticed, another thing that I've actually noticed then during the course of last year of just being online is that I very much missed the human connection with people directly. Right. And, I'm very grateful for the whole online world that, we wouldn't have met otherwise. And I've met loads and loads of people. But I actually started doing in-person workshops again, which I actually adore. And I keep them very, very small because I'm a highly sensitive person and I can't deal with big crowds. So, keeping them small makes sure as well that they get something out of it for their own business, rather than me, preaching something. It's very interactive. So it's lovely to kind of see that interaction. And actually, I've kept it to Ireland at the moment because I'm just stationed here, and we're a little bit behind when it comes to these things like opt-in and all that kind of stuff. So the holistic world over here doesn't really know what that is, and doesn't really know, there's a whole different world out there that they're not familiar with, or even the concept of, ideal clients and things like that. So I'm doing that. I'm, having that as a mission at the moment to kind of just educate and kind of get them thinking, even though especially in this field, it sometimes takes a while to figure out who your ideal clients are, because you need to work with lots of different people initially to figure that out. But I think that if you already have that, I suppose, in your back of your mind to kind of, trying to look for the patterns that emerge, I think they definitely have an advantage to other people who don't. And it's amazing to see how little people are educated in their trainings, in their colleges. So
well, entrepreneurship is a completely different ballgame. And I think, and most of us, how many of us, gosh, at like 18, we're going to college. We don't even know
what we want.
We're like choosing something that we think is what interests us, which is great, because even as an entrepreneur, often that's what we do. We choose something that we think interests us and then kind of tweak it and shift it as we go, like you said, with finding your niche. Like that evolves as your business grows, and the more you're connecting with people, you end up kind of falling into it.
Definitely. Yeah. So that's, it's been amazing to see, and I've got really good feedback from the people. And so it's really nice to kind of finally things kind of falling back into place. And it's kind of interesting to kind of see, well, I'm actually where I started off like 2.5 years ago.
Isn't that funny how that works? It's happened to me too. Happened to another client of mine as well. she had one idea in mind, and then she kept overthinking and changing things, and then she ended up right back where she started and going in that direction. So.
But I think we need to do that. I think sometimes to kind of, because I think initially we don't trust our intuition, right, and kind of this is where we need to go, because everyone else is kind of saying, well, you need to go in this direction, which happened to some extent to me, because I am good at what I've been doing in the tech side of things, and there is definitely a massive demand that I could grow that side of things immensely. Mm-hmm. And everyone kind of kept saying, well, you should do this and you should, but I've actually noticed, well, no, actually it's not, when you tune into yourself and you kind of think, okay, well, what do I really want and not what makes sense, it's going back to the roots, I suppose,
Yeah. You have to do that, because, and it is, you have to like take a quiet moment or start really paying attention to what kind of gets you excited, and you like feel it in your gut that this thing is exciting me. And then you think about what you should be doing, or what, you're seeing other people making money at. So you're like, oh, I have to do that too. But if it gives you like that, like a dread, like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. Pay attention.
Yeah, definitely. Right? And that's, for me, that's kind of, it went to the point where I was extremely busy and, helping clients do all their tech stuff, all their sales funnels and all of this kind of stuff. But I actually ended up dreading it. I was like, oh my God, I really do not ever want to do this. I need to know it in order to teach it and stuff like that. But I'm like, I'm done growing, my like growing other people's business. It's time for really connecting with what I really want. And part of that, I suppose, is because I have so many different kind of things, and I think we've talked about it last time as well, the the Hawaiian lomi massage and the yoga and stuff like that, is creating space for that again as well, to multiply the enjoyments that I have. And I think that's, a lot of people kind of forget that with an entrepreneur, you don't have to have just one lag to stand on. You can have multiple ones that I've found actually to be really good, because sometimes one business might be quiet during the summer. For example, yoga, for example, is quite quiet over the summer because everyone's away, which gives me more time to work on the other stuff. Whereas then winter, it gets busy. So there are seasonal kind of things that you can work on and tune into your intuition, kind of say, well, what do I feel like doing at the moment? And having that opportunity and freedom to do that is beautiful. And I advise anyone who has more than one interest to look into that. And I know people say, oh, but you need one single niche. Well, yes and no. Like if you have multiple interests, it doesn't mean that you have to choose just one.
Right. And often you find, I've experienced this myself, I thought they were kind of two separate things, because I've got my get shit done side of me, and then I've got my more woo-woo energy side of me, where I have like my card decks and my bracelets and anklets with the crystals and everything, Reiki and all that stuff. I'm like, God, these are like two completely different sides of the spectrum I was feeling like, but it's really not. Like, I think the more you integrate both things, you see how they actually work together. And that's how I find it creates balance. That's how you create balance, because when you're feeling stressed out over one thing, you can go to your other thing. Like you can go to your yoga and things like that to create the balance from your other side.
Because if you're so consumed with, just one thing, you do get stuck as well. Whereas if you, have another thing to jump to, it's like, okay, well, maybe, I'll need to sit with that and see how that's going. And then, it'll flow again. And like you said, I kind of thought initially, well, all the things that I am doing are very different. So I actually ended up having 2 different websites for things, which I ended up now actually merging, because I'm like, well, it's me they getting.
Right.
And like the people that are interested in my yoga or my massage, you never know, they might actually be interested in the other stuff that I have to do as well. So I've merged it all, you know, and like now with my new name, I've kind of said, okay, well, it's time to get, you know, my own name as my website. And yeah, so, but it's a process. And, you know, a lot of people ask me then, I was like, well, do I go with a business name or do I go with your own name? And I was like, well, it depends on where you're at, because it does take a lot of, I suppose, courage and guts to kind of say, well, no, this is me, and showing up online and to the world, like, this is who I am, and I'm not hiding behind a, you know, business name or anything. It's quite hard, I have to say. It took a little bit of kind of courage for me to kind of get over that, and I was like, no, that's me. People, that's who I am.
And I think it's great. Well, that brings in like authenticity, and it brings in really owning your self-worth and all those good things, you know. And then I understand when people, I think I went through that too. I was like, oh, what am I going to call my business, whatever. And I just went with my website being my name, because that you have some flexibility within there. I think if it's your name that you're kind of branding, you can shift it, you can tweak it a little, you know, and it's still there, rather than if you've got some really cool niche-y name or something and you decide to go in a different direction, then that is not going to fit you at all.
Like, I mean, for me, what I've ended up doing is I've still actually branded. Now what I've done is I've branded my course to, you know, something that's branded. So I've now called it the Holistic Business Academy, which is great because it tells exactly what it is, but at the same time, it's under my own name. So, you know, you still get that feeling of a brand, you know, which you actually, if you have a signature program, something like that, which you want, but it still brings it underneath your own kind of thing. And, you know, I think the whole authenticity of things people struggle with, because they're like, well, websites need to be, you know, written in the third person, and, you know, and I was like, no, you know, like, write it as if you're writing it to me. You know, I've just had that with a client, and he was so blocked from being able to write for his website that I was just like, well, just, you know, either talk it out, record yourself, and we'll take it from there, because you really are just talking to one person. So, you know, and that's, I suppose, what I'm trying to teach people, that it doesn't have to be this whole science behind marketing yourself. It's literally be yourself and be, you know, who you are and show up.
Right.
That's the essence of it, I suppose, you know.
And that's hard. That is hard for a lot of people, especially if you're new.
Definitely.
Because you're doing a lot of comparison to other businesses and other people, and you want to jump, you know, ahead like 10 years or something to where they are now, and perfectionism tends to set in a lot with people. And I really try to encourage people to just get your shit out there. Like,
no matter what.
Change, you can evolve, you can, you know, make stuff more polished as you go and stuff. But you know what? People, if what you're putting out there is what people are looking for, they don't care if you spent $5,000 for a 2-hour professional video shoot with editing and, you know, all that. They don't care. It's the same message. It doesn't.
If the message is right, then, you know, all that stuff can come, you know. And I actually find that, like, I keep kind of actually pointing my people to kind of Denise DeVille's Thomas post. I don't know if you've seen that, but she's done a whole kind of iteration of have her online course kind of changed, and, like, you know, it was exactly that message. It was like, I didn't spend thousands of euro on that. It was literally just me, my little camera, and I sitting there getting my message out. And you know, and especially, I have to say, in the online world, it's very easy to compare yourself.
Yes.
It's very easy to fall into the trap of like, well, but she's there, why am I not there? And you know, like we all suffer from it at times. And you know, that's one of the reasons, actually, I think, why I've started in-person workshops again, to kind of connect and kind of say, well, no, this is who I am, and this is why do this and what I stand for. So getting that connection kind of brings you back down, because you get instant feedback of like, you know, I tend to kind of make them think a lot, actually. I've kind of noticed with my workshops, they're like, you know, the testimonials I get back, they're like, I started to think in a whole different way, and, you know, it kind of gave me a lot of food for thought. So, which is good, I suppose, because they've never thought about these things. So it's nice to kind of go back to basics. And, you know, actually one of the things that I'm teaching as well, which I found really important for like holistic practitioners, is that, you know, they're like, well, online is everything. And I'm actually, no, online is not everything. And I actually think that offline marketing, like traditional, you know, like one thing I always say is get a nice business card printed, you know, be creative. For example, have a couple of quotes that you inspire you on the back of them, and just start leaving them around tables in like cafes. Very, very old school.
Yeah.
But very effective, because people will pick it up and then will kind of keep in their mind and kind of say, well, wow, or send Christmas cards or birthday cards to your clients.
Right.
You will definitely stand out, you know, and because I found that, yes, the online world is important, and yes, we can't ignore that, but I do think offline is becoming more and more important again, because you will stand out from the crowd, you know. Right. So that's one of the other teachings that I do find people are surprised by.
Yeah, and I've been hearing more about like grassroots approach coming back around too. It's everything seems to go in cycles, you know. It was way back before the internet, obviously, you know, you had a smaller reach and everything was local, and that's how you made your connections. And then the internet blew everything up, and then you could access the whole world and they can find you. But then I've had people locally say, oh, I thought you were like, I didn't even know where you were in the world. You know, and I was like, I'm right here. So there is a balance to be created with that. So what do you tell people? Because I encounter people, I mean, myself included, like who have reservations or are really nervous about doing in-person things.
Workshops? I suppose, I mean, I've been teaching, obviously, through my yoga, I've been exposed to that for quite a while. Be who you are, have fun with it. You know, I mean, my workshops are not, you know, me standing in front as like, you know, with my little laser pointer and stuff like that. Yes, I do have a little presentation. However, we tend to forget the presentation at some stage anyway, because it gets so interactive. And as long as you know your stuff, you'll be fine, you know. And I mean, I suppose initially start small.
Yeah.
You know, even if, and I mean, a lot of people are like, well, you could get so many more people. And it's like, yes, I know, but it's easier for me anyway to have small numbers, because first, one, I can connect with them directly.
Right.
You know, they get something out of it, and it's not as much to manage from a being nervous point of view, is like, well, I don't have to sit in front of, you know, 50 people and kind of speak. Now, I have no problem doing that either, you know, but yeah, so you kind of start small. Even if you have 2 people there, you know, 2 people is more than none.
Right.
You know, and for me, that's still a success, because if I can reach one person, and I think that's where we get stuck as well. It was like, well, if you don't reach 100 people, then it wasn't a success. Well, right. I believe that if you've made a difference to one person, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I suppose my tip is just start. Yeah. Just put it out there. It doesn't have to be fancy. You know, put up a little poster in your local health food store or local holistic center or whatever it is, library, and just start. Yeah. You know, that's my, and the nervousness, yes, the first time I did it, I ended up actually having a 4-hour workshop, which is massive. You know, I was nervous as hell, but as soon as you stand up there and start talking and being in your element, once you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, it'll flow. Like, there's no other way. It kind of is like something else is taking you over, and, you know, you're just there. You're just a vessel, you know, presenting that stuff, you know.
Right. So in your workshops, are you teaching, you said like kind of the back to the basics and everything. Is that how you structure your workshops? Are you attracting
Yeah, it depends.
at the very beginning of their business ventures?
It depends, actually. I've had both. Like I've had, you know, my last workshop, I had people that they hadn't even finished their training. And I've had people that have been in business for like, I don't know, 3 years, but who hadn't actually done anything. Like in the sense of like, they've had clients and stuff, but word of mouth in Ireland, that's very, very easy to do as well. But they've never thought about, well, who do I actually want to work with? Because they've still been living in the whole, well, I need to serve everyone.
Right.
You know, and I want to serve everyone. You know, so I get both, I have to say. And I do think that if I get them in the beginning before they start, I can plant the seeds. It might not, you know, they might not need it straight away. Whereas those people who have been in business, they can start implementing that straight away because they will be able to see the patterns. But if I can plant that seed, then, you know, I think that's very, very important and good because they'll have an advantage in the future. So it depends. Like, I mean, I've done just social media workshops as well, where I kind of taught people how to use social media and the different kind of aspects of doing it. And then I'm actually, this Sunday, I'm going to do all of it. So like, we're going to go through an awful lot. Like we're going to go through, well, why do we actually need, you know, marketing, and why do we, you know, how do I set up my business in the sense of what taxation and, you know, pricing and getting all of that, and like actually having a vision of where do I want to go,
right?
You know, so yeah, it really depends on kind of what the workshop is about, but I think like down the line I do want to do like the whole alternative income stream and stuff like that, but they're not ready in Ireland. They're not quite ready for that yet because they don't have the basics for that. Because I think if you do start to bring in online courses and things like that, you do need a list for that. Do need a mailing list, and you know, you do need to kind of build that up. So yeah, I suppose that's what I'm preparing them for down the line. So,
which is great because then that gives you more opportunities to be in front of them.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I've been starting to tour the country, and you know, so it's nice.
That's cool. I remember I did see a picture, I think you posted, of like your first live workshop or something.
Oh,
yes. You posted on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was it was good. I really enjoy them. It's really nice to kind of connect with people directly again. I do love my clients in the US and Canada and wherever they are, but you know, it's nice to connect directly.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's a different feel, and it is great. Like I've done a couple local workshops too, and it is nice to have that personal space that you're sharing together and making those connections, and not just, you know, obscure in the online world, or even if you're doing video calls, it's still not the same as being in the same space.
Yeah. So I mean, I suppose like ultimately what I do want to do is do retreats where I can incorporate all of me into one. So, you know, like start the day with meditation and yoga, and, you know, then go into your business and, you know, start building your business together. And so, yeah, that's kind of my next step, I suppose, to kind of try and bring it all together.
Sounds awesome.
Yes.
You have to come to the States and do that.
One day I will do that.
Not California, because California gets like everything.
No, I'll come down to Florida. I've been meaning to go down there. So.
All right, good.
So I'll come to you.
All right. Yeah, it's so funny because I think people in Europe think that the U.S. has like all these events and all these things that happen, and then I'm like, yeah, but they're all in California, and that's like It's not like just hop in your car and drive over there.
Yeah.
Everything's
Or
on the
come to New York or something, like just clustered as well, I suppose. Well, actually, the Irish people say the same. Like everything's in Dublin, and no one comes down. So that's why I made an effort of like, okay, well, I'll come down to like this little town down south, and we did the workshop there. So, yeah.
Everybody's perception. The perceptions are funny, I guess.
Yeah.
I was thinking if there was something that popped in my head. Okay, so you said something, like when you're in your element and you know your stuff. All right, so I know that the ego pops in and says, no, you don't know your stuff, And so you're like, who are you to go teach people to do this? You don't know what you're doing. And then that fear stops so many of us from stepping into that bigger space.
Mm-hmm.
Do you just say to your ego, like, fuck off, like I'm doing this anyway, I have a plan and I'm doing this? Or do you have any tricks that you use to kind of work your way around that? Because that's huge for really a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I suppose for me, yes, I like, and don't get me wrong, I still get that. I was like, who am I to teach this stuff? But at the same time, you have to kind of put yourself in the shoes of those people that, you know more than they do. Mm. And as long as you're one step ahead of them, you can teach them. Right. So like, now I wouldn't necessarily, I think there's different stages of people that you can teach. So like if I look up to, then we'll always have different people we look up to and, aspire to becoming. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I wouldn't be able to teach those people. But at the same time, if you look at where you started off a few years ago and where I started off a few years ago, well, I can certainly share my knowledge because I know more than they do. So I suppose for me, that's whenever, like, that's the one thing I kind of keep telling myself, well, if you know one more thing than they do, then you can do it. Right. And actually, funnily enough, sometimes you actually do get people who know stuff, but who will still come to you and, because you teach it in a unique way. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing that I kind of, you get the whole, well, everyone else does it as well. And, like there's so much competition. Right. But that's when I kind of start saying, well, but they're not you. They don't bring your, personality, your experiences in it. And specifically for my audience, this is very important because, people, especially in the healing, in the holistic practitioners, in the yoga teaching, we connect to the person rather than their certifications or their, right, their knowledge or their training and stuff like that. We connect to that person, I think, on an energetic level. So as long as you remember that too, and you kind of don't fall into a comparison trap, it's like, well, but this person does this and this and this. Well, this person isn't you. So that's what I'm trying to bring out of my clients as well. It's like, well, why are you, you are special as you are anyway. Right. So like, we just need to bring that out and we need to kind of tap into that. Yeah. But I suppose those are the two things that kind of help me get out there and kind of say, well, do you know what? No, I can do it. And yeah, I kind of do kind of say, it was like, you know what, ego, you can park over there, you can watch, you can go along for the ride, but, you can stay over there. Like, don't like, I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert who kind of said the whole, it was like fear can kind of come along for the ride. You're not allowed to touch the radio and, stuff like that, So, yeah, I've kind of taken that on board as well and kind of said, do you know what? Like, if it's not me to kind of bring it out there, someone else will. And it'll be different, not worse, not better, not, it'll be different. So yeah, as long as you have those two kind of pieces and you keep telling them yourself. And I mean, as an entrepreneur, you kind of go through a day could look like massive high, massive low. And, it was like, yes, I've got it. And then it was like next minute, oh crap, no, I haven't got it,
Right.
So, I am going through that still, and, getting, I suppose, the motivation and getting the drive to do what you do is the hardest part of being an entrepreneur, I think.
Yeah, it is. And even people who've already, quote unquote, made it in the coaching industry or whatever, like I've heard them say that, a couple of weeks ago, this was Sean Smith we were talking to one day, and he's like 2 weeks ago, I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I even doing, I'm just going to go get a job, like delivering pizza or something, because it is very different than working for somebody else, because you're constantly creating and it's very go, which is why the energy stuff is so important in my opinion, because if you don't manage that, you could just fall into these pools of.
I found it quite beautiful as well, though, and it takes a while to kind of get to that stage, but now I work, which is going into the woo area, like I started working with the moon cycle. I kind of started noticing, well, around the full moon, I can work like this. Around the new moon, you can chuck me out the window and I can't do anything.
Yeah.
I still do things, but I've realized I do the bare minimum during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And, have then 2 weeks where I'm really, really productive and can really do things.
Yeah.
So having that freedom, but it takes time to allow yourself to do that as well.
It does.
To kind of say, well, but I should be working and stuff like that. Well, no, that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. Like, for example, today I've been like, okay, well, didn't really do anything this morning. And then I rolled out of bed and, taught a yoga class and then, strolled through town and had a coffee and, came back here and, talking to you now and then a half hours later. But, it's getting out of the trot of like, well, this is what it's supposed to look like. Coming to, well, I create my days.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me at the moment, that means I don't do any appointments before 10 o'clock ever. Just because, I take my time in the morning, do my meditation and get up and all that kind of stuff, and I don't think I could hold a proper 9-to-5 job anymore. I don't think I could, honestly. It's but it takes time to kind of allow yourself to kind of go with that and kind of say, well, today, I'm just going to take a half day off and I'm going to take a week off, or, obviously it does mean you need to manage your other stuff before and after a little bit better.
Right.
But at the same time, you have the freedom to do that. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. Like that's, I'm starting to finally being able to do that and kind of say, okay, well, that's fine. I'll just go with it and say, today is a day I'm not going to be too productive, but if I manage to do A, B, and C, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And obviously in the line of like, if you have deadlines for clients, obviously you got to do it and stuff like that. But
But you can plan. You can strategically plan all your time. So if you want to take a week off, you're preparing for that.
Exactly. So I've just taken a week off.
Right.
And it was actually no problem. So it's getting into that rhythm and kind of thinking, okay, well, I can actually do it. And I've just spoken with a friend who is self-employed as well. And I go to, like we've talked about, like I go away quite a lot during the year. So I go either to Bali for a month, or now I'm going to Hawaii for a good few weeks. And, and she's like, well, how do you do it? I was like, well, you just do it, you have the freedom to do it. You just obviously need to be a little bit organized, before and after, and have to do a little bit more work. But, and I get that question a lot, actually, when people start finding out that I go away for at least a month a year. They're like, well, but how? I'm like, you just be organized and do it. And yes, sometimes I need to do a little bit of work while I'm there, but at the same time, it does work. Even the, I know a chiropractor, I think, who does the same. Like, I think she works like 2 months and then she takes about 6 weeks off, and then she works 2 months, and then, so it's possible because we create the life that we want.
Right.
which is the reason we go, I suppose, into business and entrepreneurship like in the first place.
Right. Yeah. And another thing, going back to, because this popped in my head, so I wanted to say it.
Yeah.
We were talking about, the fear and all that stuff of putting yourself out there and then teaching others or coaching. I like to try to also put sort of a mindset of collaboration in there, because often I've learned things from clients or other people. So even if you think, like maybe somebody's a little bit ahead of you, but you're unique, so you're teaching things a certain way, but they may have something that they teach you and you're like, oh my God, that's like brilliant. And then you incorporate that. So if you go into it with that sort of mindset of it's a give and take, and there's a collaboration of, maybe this person does know a great technique for doing Y, Z, and then you've learned something, they've learned something, it's been a really good time of sharing and learning together. So I try to think of it that way too, because there's always a little like, oh, what if they know more than I do kind of a thing.
Well, great, then, teach me, because yes, absolutely. I find that so important to kind of, and I think, unfortunately women are often kind of put into that bracket of like, being bitchy and being, I've actually started writing a post about that, about, why women why you don't have to be a bitch or bitchy to be a success, because I suppose it's from the day when they had to be in order to, get ahead of the men and stuff like that. Whereas I found it the opposite nowadays in the online world specifically, that, we're lifting each other up and helping each other out, rather than kind of saying, oh, no, like she's doing the same thing as me. No.
Right.
So I've actually found it very, very different, and helping each other out is, it's the best thing. And yes, we can always learn. And if you go at it from that place, and I still learn a lot every day, even from my students, even from them, I learn all the time. It's like, oh, okay, I've never seen it that way. So, wow, okay, I'll have a look at that,
Yeah.
And as long as you're open to that and not kind of like, oh, I'm the best, I could be the best. And that's not in my personality to be like that anyway. But, but yeah, also standing then in your own right and kind of saying, being, when you're challenged, because that happens too, is like, well, but why? And why are you doing this way? And, being affirmative and kind of saying, well, yes, other people might teach it differently. And there are quite a few things that I think other people in my field teach things differently than I do. But this is how it's worked for me. This is, my belief. And, it's absolutely fine that there's other people out there doing it differently. And there's definitely merit to all the different approaches. But this is me. This is, how I teach it. This is how I do it. And, if everything else works for you, by all means, try it. It's brilliant. If it works, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
So the standing in that, in your own truth, I found is very powerful and very scary at the same time.
Right. Because that doubt can creep in. That your little sidekick partner that's parked over here driving with you, that can be like, I told you. That's
so it's for example, like, it's taken me about 6 months to change my website. It's taken me about 6 months to kind of finally put, the copy out there that I really wanted to get out there. And, so it, but at the same time, I kind of say that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people are like, well, I have to be on everything. I have to be on all the social media, and I have, and I teach, and I believe, no, you don't.
Right.
It takes as long as it takes. And if it takes you a year to get there, that's fine, as long as you take steps towards where you want to go. As no matter how small they are, even if you just, because I've worked with people who have absolutely never used Facebook in their life, and they're completely terrified by that. And I was like, well, why don't you just go ahead and just have a look at Facebook for the next however long time, and just kind of see what other people do and kind of just get a feel for it.
Right.
you know, because we all learn in different ways and different times. So yeah, that's kind of.
And I like that, and to be able to give yourself permission to do that, to be okay with it. You don't have to be at the same place as somebody else, you know.
And I know it's frustrating. It is very frustrating if, you know, the girl next door is like 10 steps ahead of you and you feel like, oh, you know, I should be there.
Right.
And I know that, but at the same time, yeah, it's, you know, giving yourself permission to be where you're at, and knowing that it's exactly where you need to be at this point of time, and just trusting, and, you know, getting into the woo-woo side of like trusting the universe and kind of, you know, so like learning that is, I think, a massive thing. And for me, actually, mindset work has been like mind-blowing in the last year since we've spoken. Actually, I've done a lot of mindset work, and for me that's more important at the moment than any strategy out there, because if you don't have the mindset, you can't, like, you can do any strategy that you want, it's not going to work as well as for the next person who has it.
Yeah, there's different approaches to everything, and I think that's what people have to explore too, because just like you said, I mean, if one thing works for one person, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And you're not a failure if it doesn't work for you. You just try a different method or a different approach to it. And you explore and you find what feels good and what works and what you can commit to, and then taking those consistent actions.
Yes.
And you know, you're not just giving up. You're taking consistent action, whether you're doing it like a race car driver or you're like really slow, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, it's I don't know, I think it's a lot of society that kind of says, oh, well, you need to be there, you know, you need to be, if you're 35, you need to have kids and you need to be married and stuff like that, you know. And there is this outside pressure that we need to withstand every single day, especially as women in business, to kind of say, well, no, this is where I am right now and it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I encourage anyone kind of out there, is like, if you're, you know, feeling like the pressure is on from everyone around you, you need to be there, and need to, you know, try to withstand that and just be true to yourself and just listen to your own kind of deep inner voice, kind of that kind of nagging at you, and you know actually that it's the truth, and you just listen to that.
Yeah, I agree. Even if it's outside the box.
Even if it's, especially if it's outside the box. Yes.
Because a lot of family or friends or something, if they're used to traditional means of making income, coaching could be like, what? You know, or they're like, how does this, I don't understand how this works. How are you getting paid? You know, like, how does this happen? And then, you know, them saying things like that to you could be like, make you question yourself.
Just had that conversation last week with my sister. She's like, I don't know what you do. Like, can you explain it to me? I'm like, okay. Like, I try to explain, but you know, sometimes it's hard to explain as well what you do, you know, but I think she's got a little bit of a clearer picture now. But yeah, like, don't let that, you know, if you have a partner that kind of supports you, but it doesn't understand it, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they have a different perspective on things, and you know, but just keep going.
Keep going. And the awesome thing with the internet is that if you can't find anybody locally that you can kind of become business buddies with or something, you can find somebody online, because there's so many groups and resources to find people who are doing what you're doing or who are starting to do, you know, you just explore in there. And gosh, I've met, I mean, just so many people are so willing to help others.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, and that's kind of one thing as well, is I kind of, you know, and I think a lot of people forget that even if you're doing an online business, even if you're an online coach, like, your number one priority should be being of service and being helpful, and being, you know, customer service is still the number one thing that you should be doing. You know, so yeah, but I found that as well. Like, having an online community that's supportive is amazing.
It is.
And it's invaluable, and it's, you know, And I don't think I would have met any of you guys, if it wasn't for all those online groups.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think that's just brilliant, because you learn different things from different people, and then you get to know them and what their areas of expertise are. So like you said, if you don't want to do funnels and all this stuff for people anymore, you create this network of people that you can refer them to, because that is what those people love to do. So I love that, the internet has brought the world into a smaller circle where we can connect with people so easily to get the support we need, or references, friendships, even if they're around the world,
And I've actually started to connect in the real life with some of those people that I've met online,
that's really exciting.
In America, and it's really exciting to kind of finally actually meet them in the real life,
and you feel like you already know them.
Yes.
Because how easy is it to hop on Zoom or Skype or FaceTime or any of a million ways that you can connect face to face? So it's kind of like you're talking to them, and that's how you get to know them. And then you meet in person, it's like you're best friends already.
Yes. And it's definitely, and it was definitely like that for a lot of them, and it turned out one of them lives just around, like 20 minutes from me. And, so it's nice. It's definitely, it's beautiful to kind of bring both worlds together.
It is. It is. I feel that it eliminates excuses for not doing something, not moving forward in the direction you want to move in. There's really no reason why you can't,
yes.
because there are so many resources and people willing to help you get there. You just ask. It's ridiculous. Like, people are afraid to ask. I mean, I was one of them. I was one of those who thought I had to figure everything out on my own and do it myself. But I've kind of overcome that, thank God. Right? And, like, why struggle with something when you can just ask somebody?
Yes.
And you don't have to know somebody locally who can do it either. You can just reach out. So no excuses.
Nope. Just ask.
That's right.
Ask for help. Ask questions. Yeah, definitely.
So you've got an offer. I want to wrap up and not take up everybody's day. I know you've got an offer that is brand new.
Yes. So it's actually a little training. So it's a training video on the kind of most important things you need on your website as a holistic practitioner, as a yoga teacher, and kind of helping guide you through those kind of important steps to really get that up and running and make an impact. That
sounds important. I love things like that. They're like, okay, you have to have this. And you're like, oh, okay. You just do it.
Well, I suppose it's going again back to basics.
Right.
So yeah, like one aspect of it is that I'm going into is the About You page, which a lot of people neglect, even though it's one of the most visited pages on the website, specifically when you come into healing and things like that. So
I know. It's so important to actually go back. I talked about this in a video I did recently too, that even if you've been in business for years, we forget things that are very basic, and it's great to have those refreshers, because you neglect them, you start to take things for granted, and sometimes you just need to like rewind and come back to the basic things and make sure that you've got those in place.
Yes, definitely. So that's what the training is about, to kind of, your basics for your website that you really want to have, even if it's just a one pager, because people are kind of like overwhelmed with getting websites done as well, but you could just have a one single page.
Yeah.
To start out with.
Out there, just
get it out there. Exactly. Like, you're going to talk about what it is that, even if you just have one page, those are the things you really want on there. So
awesome. So the link to that will be on my website on CherriseBoucher.com/the Inspire View series, or under the Inspire View series tab. And contact information for you, that'll be all on there too. So, but what is your website?
My website is christinejudd.com. So that's JUDD.com.
Easier to spell than Schnell, right?
Oh, very much so. Oh my goodness, it's helped me so much. Definitely.
Yeah, I've got 2 names that I have to spell every single time I tell somebody. I named. It's funny, totally off topic, but if we go and place to-go orders or something, I always just give my son's name Alex because it's just easy. I don't have to spell it out.
Yes. So no, it's definitely helped me to kind of, it would have, been very confusing, especially in the English speaking world, to have this very German name to kind of pronounce and do. So yes, definitely. So yes, christinejudd.com.
Very easy. Awesome.
Very easy.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today and all this, because I'm very excited and I love to keep in touch with past guests and find out what they're doing now. So
thank you for having me. It was great to have you, to be back on with you and just share the different direction and kind of, I suppose, learnings of being in business.
It's important, I think, to share that message too, that don't feel you can't shift in your direction, just in fact, you probably will. It's probably just about guaranteed that you'll shift in some way, and just allow it.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you. Bye.